Welcome into the Toyota Lounge, driven by your Front Range Toyota stores. Toyota, the official vehicle of DNVR. I'm Justin Michael. We've got Andre Simone here, Tiff behind the sticks. It's draft day. There's a lot going on. We're going to be at Breckenridge Brewery later tonight for a live draft show. Cannot wait to be a part of it.
Yeah.
A lot of interest on the CSU side for the draft this weekend. The possibility that 3 Rams could go. Feel pretty good that Mo and Dallin are going to go. We'll see about Chigozie and Newseum as well.
Yeah.
He's got a good chance when you're a corner 6'1", 210 plus. Like, you're going to have a pretty decent chance to get drafted. I think all 3. I'm going to go ahead and call my shot. I'm going to say all 3 do get drafted this weekend. What do you think about that?
Newseum, really good chance of making it eventually to a 53, getting NFL snaps. I think just outside looking in on being drafted, I think Mo goes pretty high. And where Dallin's going to go is going to be really interesting. I wouldn't exclude a big surprise in him going late 3rd, high 4th even, you know?
I don't think it would be impossible. It's such a crapshoot trying to project tight ends, particularly.
Tight ends is very much beauty in the eye of the beholder.
It's exactly.
Yeah.
It's just one staff will fall in love with you, and then all of a sudden you were, a projected late 6th round pick that went early 4th just because, one team's sitting there and they're like, well, we don't have another pick till the 7th. We can't guarantee that he's going to be there. We're just going to pull the trigger. There's always going to be a market for pass catching tight ends. I'll go live tomorrow to kind of set the scene for day 2. That's where I expect Mo Kamara to go. If he does happen to be a surprise 1st round pick, we'll be breaking that down. But I'll be getting into some teams that I think could be good fits for Mo Kamara, could be good fits for Dallin Holker as well. Daniel Jeremiah, NFL draft expert, has Mo as his number 71 prospect overall, one of just 2 Mountain West players in his top 150.
Who's the other one?
Trey Taylor, the Air Force safety at 140, who's a guy I'm pretty high on.
Says a lot.
That was validating. I think it makes a lot of sense. Both Mo and Trey tested through the roof. They're both guys that project well, have some versatility to their game.
Yeah, and Mo's athleticism, production. I mean, if you're not a scout that's been watching these guys for years and years, but you're like a coach that comes in late in the process, I think you'll be asking, like, wait, why is this Chop Robinson kid who's undersized as well, has more injury concerns, why is he ranked 2 tiers higher than Mo Kamara, who has the same questions, fewer injury concerns, more production, and the same explosive traits?
It's why a lot of guys are high on him. We talked about last week Brian Baldinger, Daniel Jeremiah, who we just said has him in his top 75. They've been really open and kind of pounding the table as Mo Kamara guys, just saying, we like the production, we like the relentless motor. And from what they're saying, it sounds like there are a lot of NFL teams interested in him. I would be shocked if Mo is not a day 2 pick. I really think it would be very surprising if he fell to the 4th round to me.
It'll be fascinating to follow on Friday. It's an interesting draft, man. It's we talk about this kind of stuff year round and for years, but every year it's more true. It's like a true manifestation of modern football and the kind of schemes that coaches like Jay Norvell are leading the way, and how that's really kind of changed the sport. And this is one of those years. It's all wide receivers, quarterbacks, offensive tackles, edge rushers, and it's just the passing positions. They're loaded.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's actually one of the things we're going to talk about. We're going to get into some takeaways from the spring as a whole. I'll get into really a lot of these position groups individually, but if I had to make one just generalization, one takeaway on, what's something you've noticed about CSU football in 2024, what's different going into year 3 versus year 1 under Norvell, it's the size and it's the athleticism of these guys. He came in, said that they needed to overhaul the roster. They wanted guys with NFL traits. They were going to try and build this up with that in mind. It's exactly what they're doing. We'll get all into all of that in just a second. We're also going to, at the very end, I hope you stick around because we're going to have some fun in honor of draft day. We're going to do a little draft where we go back and forth trying to create basically like a fantasy football style offense, but using the best CSU players from largely the 21st century. The rules aren't going to be super strict, but we'll get into all of that.
It's our draft, and we will determine the rules. Damn it.
It's my party, and I'll cry if I want to.
Absolutely. Leave us a thumbs up also, please. Lots of love to you.
With a thumbs up, getting a comment, and I would appreciate it. Just a couple of headlines before we get into the main stuff today. Did come out that CSU will be playing the University of Washington in basketball. I love that. Going to play Washington for the second straight season. It's going to be a nice little MTE event. Also have the possibility of playing TCU. So nice scheduling for the Rams. That's a Big Ten game. Continuing to not be scared of these bigger schools. You know, some schools try and juke the system a little bit. They try and schedule, you get cute with it and be like, oh, we're going to do this team and we're going to do the metrics. Medved's been like, we're just going to go big game hunting and we're going to try and prove ourselves. Did it awesome last year, beat 4 high majors. Love that.
Yeah, the non-conference was not the issue. Non-conference
was a dream, man. That was a blast.
That was nuts.
We'll see what happens. I'll give you guys updates as we figure out the rest of the schedule there. In a Q&A with Kevin Lytle, the Fort Collins, Coloradoan, big-time friend of the pod, comes on a couple times a month. He told Kevin that he is trying to arrange a game with CU. It's kind of in the air at the moment. It makes sense. There's probably some schedule questions with CU moving from the Pac-12 to the Big 12.
Certainly.
That said, I really hope to see that game happen. Very likely that both teams will have completely different starting fives than what we saw a year ago.
Yeah.
But it's a game that's good for the state. It's good for interest in college sports as a whole. So I hope we see that.
Yeah, truly, man. I mean, I think it's fun. It's easy. There aren't the complications that there are with the football matchup. And like, it really felt like last year college hoops was having a moment in our state. And these are the kind of things that allow you to lean into that. Make that a rivalry in basketball as well. Make that feel more important. Make that matter to people.
Well, and it's just, like you're saying, it's just a game they should lean into. Like,
yeah,
I understand if you're CU going into the Big 12, which is by far going to be the best basketball league in the country, you could ask yourself, do we want to risk a non-conference loss to a team that's probably going to be competitive?
Right.
But as a whole, I just think it's one of those that it's good for the overall health of college basketball in this state. And yeah, I mean, every now and then one side's going to be better and, you know, you're going to have to take your lumps and, you know, maybe you take a bad loss one year, but you get them back the next year. That's what makes it fun. It's fun to have these games on campus. Hope to see 100%. It come together. Last little just general news in the headlines here. Justice Ross Simmons has committed to Syracuse. Shocker. I know the school that had been tampering for months is where he lands. We'll see what happens there. I don't know. His thing publicly has been that it's about getting to the NFL. If it's about getting to the NFL, I don't know why you would go to Syracuse.
Right. I mean, the opportunity was really opening up, especially with Brown gone.
Very weird situation.
Odd situation.
I know some other schools were in the mix as well. One of the things that I think people discount in the transfer process is some of these big schools are deceptively hard to get into, especially if you were not preparing to transfer for months and months. The thing that like a lot of people don't realize is back in the day when guys were going to transfer, that was a big decision because a lot of time you had to sit out. So it was something you were preparing for months. You're making sure your academics are in line. Nowadays, a lot of these guys, it's like somebody gets in their DMs, they hop in the portal a week later. It wasn't something they had been preparing for. And then you find out, oh, it's harder to get into the University of Florida than I may have realized, or the University of Michigan. We've seen that happen with some of these G5 guys. They get sold on a dream at a bigger school and then kind of find out that it isn't reality. We'll see what happens. I mean, I wish him well. He was a really exciting player during his time at CSU, but I'll be honest, it irks me a little bit, and especially knowing what I know about how that process played out and just how much tampering goes on when it happens, I'm going to call it out. So that's what happened there. Flipping it, getting the energy back up, getting things more fun. We're going to get into the spring takeaways, but trucks have always been a part of Toyota's DNA. For generations, Toyota has built durable legends destined for greatness and perfect for Colorado.
Hell of a transition. This is great.
Whether you're conquering the off-road trails or hauling the way to the world, there's a Toyota truck that's just right for you, like the all-new 2024 Tacoma and the return of the iconic 2024 Land Cruiser coming this spring. Toyota offers 17 models with available all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive like the Epic 4Runner. They also offer more low and zero emission vehicles combined than any other automakers, so they are giving customers numerous choices to reduce their carbon footprint. Gotta love that. There's 16 different hybrid vehicles to choose from, like the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck. Not to be outdone, Toyota SUVs take command on the road and on the trail, so you can explore the road less traveled and without sacrificing smooth city rides in SUVs like the RAV4 and Grand Highlander. Toyota, a proud partner of CSU Athletics and the official vehicle of DNVR.
Yep. Also the official sponsor of our Toyota chat there. And we also want to shout out Premier Members Credit Union. Obviously, lots of financial institutions out there to choose from, but here's one that I do want you to keep in mind with Premier Credit. The big thing about PMCU is that they're not a bank, so they can do things differently, like putting their members first with higher savings interest and lower loan rates. You also have local branches, friendly tellers. You do notice that difference. And the tools you need to save smarter, like their high yield savings accounts, earn 5% APY on your first $2,000 with their reverse tier money market. Whatever your goals are, PMCU can help you, and there's a bit less of that pressure and a bit more of a personable approach that you can take advantage of. And then when you become a new member of PMCU, you'll get $200. You just have to open a checking account and sign up for e-statements. It's that easy. This will be your best money move yet. God knows I need it with all these stretching myself a little thin with some of these draft props. Head to bcomepremier.com to find out more.
Love it. Love everybody in the comment section. I appreciate you guys tuned in. Rams, Buffs fans, Wyoming fans, you're all welcome. It is all good.
That's a great thing.
Shout out to my guy, Yo Poke. He's very active in the Discord. Kyle Evans, yes, we do have that in the comment section. He has committed to UC Irvine. Not shocking at all. He's a guy who could certainly play at a higher level than that. As I made clear when he announced his decision to transfer, it's about getting closer to family. Had a tough year behind the scenes, so happy that he's going to be able to be closer to his mom again. Rooting for him. He's a dude who's got a ton of potential. Had to battle some tough injuries there, but a guy that has a very bright ceiling. Shout out to Kyle Evans. Let's get into it. Let's get into some takeaways from the spring, and then we will talk about Tory Horton kind of closing in on greatness. I'm going to throw out some numbers, how close he is to really cementing himself as one of, if not the greatest CSU receiver of all time. He's already in that conversation with guys like Michael Gallup, Rashard Higgins, obviously David Anderson. We'll get into that. But I did want to just kind of get into some takeaways from spring. I talked about the spring game a little bit by myself, but I wanted to bounce some of the stuff off you, see what kind of jumps out to you.
Please.
I got into this a little bit earlier, but I think the biggest thing that jumps out to me is just the general size and athleticism of this team now versus 2022. And I think where it's very the most evident is with the offensive line, and that's really encouraging. I mean, they've got 3 starters back from a year ago. You lose both your guards, which is tough. But this is an O-line that allowed just 14 sacks last year after allowing 59 the year before with a completely different group. What feels really good about this is you return your key pieces. You got Savion Henderson back. You got Drew Moss back. You got Jacob Gardner back. And now some of these young guys that you've recruited and you've had in your system for a couple years, they're really starting to take that next step forward.
Right.
We're going to see some of them in the starting lineup as well. And they've got size. I mean, if I had to project the starting 5 today for the offensive line, it would be Savion Henderson at left tackle. It would be Tanner Morley, who's going to be a sophomore out of Valor Christian, Colorado kid, love it. He'll be left guard. Jacob Gardner at center again, Drew Moss at right guard, and Aaron Karras, a Pomona product, at right tackle. If you factor in those 5, plus the 3 guys who I expect to be in the rotation, who are Alex Foster at 6'8", 280, Big A, Ader Uriana Baranchea. I'm trying so hard, buddy. I promise by the season I'll get it. He's going to be a swing tackle. And then we've got Keegan Hamilton, who will kind of be like your swing interior lineman. Those 8 guys average out at 6'5", 305. That's NFL size.
Yeah, and I mean, we always talk about kind of the Fort Fun and how he came from Nevada and stuff. We forget that Jay Norvell had a long stretch at Oklahoma under Bob Stoops, right? And
very influential.
That, like, this is how you build football programs. This is how you build teams. We saw more of an emphasis in the run game last year than maybe I expected. Some massive improvements,
and they're
going to
lean in that, by the way, even more. That was a focus of the spring.
This O-line.
They want to run the ball better.
Yeah.
They want to stop the run better, and they want to be better in situation, like 2-minute drills. Really the areas that can cost you in tight games, which is where CSU was at last year. They were in all these games. They're competitive. You're right there, but they just repeatedly shot themselves in the foot. They want to play ball control a little bit better. They want to help their defense out, and maybe not have them be on the field so much. Right. Having this big O-line that you can lean on and know that if a guy goes down for a game or two, you've got some depth to be able to step in there. It's not like, you pull one card out and the whole house is going to come collapsing down. It's exciting, especially with a young quarterback who, you'd like to kind of just take some of the pressure off him, make him not feel like he has to be Superman all the time.
100%. And I mean, this is just how you build a sound offense. And that size, man, that's pretty impressive.
You're going to really be excited about Tanner Morley. You probably move him outside to tackle eventually. He's going to start at left guard, 6'7". Dude, his feet for being that big and that lanky, he is quick and he is a mauler. Like the staff is very, very excited about him. I'm very excited about him. And I love that they're hitting on these Colorado kids, him like Aaron Karras and Tanner Morley. This historically is the area where CSU has had the most success with local recruiting. It's offensive line. You go back to those sunny years. I mean, the late 90s, early 2000s, 3-4 of those guys on any given year were going to be Colorado kids. Even McElwain and Bobo. I mean, you look at some of those guys, the Sam Carlsons and Jake Bennett's of the world, like those are homegrown kids that you've been able to bring into your program and develop. In the transfer world, you hope you can establish some continuity and hang on to these guys. That's obviously the big fear, is that like you hit on these kids that big schools ignore. You show that they can be good, and then big schools come in and swoop them.
Right.
But I mean, if you can establish some continuity, and I think the likelihood of Colorado kids sticking around is probably higher.
Yeah, and I mean, bringing wins and more excitement in the program and more people wanting to invest money, right? Like,
well, you get to a spot where it becomes desirable or cool to represent your state team. Like, and that's how it was in the 90s and 2000s. Kids wanted to play for CU. They wanted to play for CSU because they were in the top 15 and the top 20 every year. It's been a long time since we've been in that spot, but it would be cool to see it return. Moving to the wide receiver room, that Tory Horton is going to do his thing, and we'll kind of talk about that in a sec, what he needs to do in terms of putting up some historic numbers. With Justice Ross Simmons out of the picture now, a guy that I thought was in line to really take a leap. I mean, he closed the season strong. It's a big loss. He flashed as a freshman, really came on strong as a sophomore. That said, I think Donovan Ollie, the Washington State Cincinnati transfer, is in line to have a really big season. And frankly, I think he'll put up just as much production as Justice would have. I think they'll be just fine.
I mean, look, the big thing is with Coach Jay Norvell came in, he's going to build up those wide receivers, and there's going to be more interest to take those guys away, and there's just going to be a greater ability to bring in a new one and turn that guy into someone a P5 school wants in a year or so.
100%. And like, I'm trying to make it clear. I'm not trying to be like, oh man, whatever. See ya, Justice Ross Simmons. We didn't need. It's a major loss for the offense.
Yeah.
But I think Justice Ross Simmons, what he brings to the table stylistically on the outside, very similar to what Donovan Ollie is going to be able to do. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that can create for you after the catch a little bit in the open field. He's bigger body, a little bit harder to bring down. So I'm really excited about him. It's in the spring game. It was very clear that BFN was trying to consistently get him targets. He had the first touchdown of the day. And from what I've heard, those guys have been spending a lot of time together, off the field, especially now that Justice is out of the picture, of like, let's get our shit together. We want to make sure we are like this. I'm pretty excited about this receiving core. I think quietly, Ollie, and then with Dylan Goffney being back, you've got a really nice veteran trio to lean on with those two and Tory Horton.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's going to be a better passing game. You're going to have a better O-line. It's year 2 of BFN, and you still have Tory. Hopefully a healthy Tory.
It would be really nice if they could prevent him from taking some of the shots he took. And that's the fear is, if you're leaning on Tory so consistently, he's going to take a lot of hits. And we saw that in the open field a year ago, kind of added up as the season went on. I got a question here from Jacob. Odds CSU can land Ricky Johnson, the UNLV transfer corner. I don't have any inside information. I heard the visit went well. He was on campus. I know he's going to visit, I think, Memphis and Washington State as well. So Memphis got some NIL money. That could be a concern. That said, it's got to be pretty appealing that you can sell him on you're going to come in and probably start day one, opposite of Isaiah Sissoma, who had a really nice performance in the spring game as well, had an interception, a couple of PBUs. Good question, though, from Jacob. We will monitor that. I'll reach out today, see if I can get some info. Follow me on Twitter at thednvr.com as well. I'll keep you up to date with all the recruiting stuff as it comes in. Sticking with the offense, one of the questions I had when I previewed the spring was, is the starting tight end even on the roster right now? We found that answer. It is no. He is not. Jackson Warren will come in the summer. He will be the starting tight end game 1. I'd like to see them, if they can, add another tight end on top of that. I think that role, being able to attack the middle of the field, is just so important that you can't really roll into the season with a guy who has zero experience in your system and just hope that it works out. Like, I think you need another guy there that's proven to feel good.
Well, portal window is open back up. I think you could find some veteran options, and it helps when you can show people a path of what Dallin Holker just did.
You would think. I mean, you've had a Mackey finalist 2 out of the last 3 years and a Mackey winner. Like, right. I know the system's changed, but you would think somebody out there would be like, hey, yes, I would like to be in a system where I'm going to get 75 plus targets, be featured in the red zone, consistently used on third down, all that stuff. But just being able to attack the middle of the field, CSU didn't have that option in 2022. It was a lot of things compounding. Like, you didn't have good depth at receiver. You had a quarterback who was taking a beating, an O-line that was struggling. He wasn't sitting back long enough in the pocket to trust it. Like, there are a lot of reasons they weren't able to attack the middle of the field. But I am a little bit worried. I would say that's probably my biggest concern going into the summer right now, is just, do they have enough there?
I mean, I'd venture to say they don't.
I would too. And I mean, you're hearing really good things about Warren. He's going to be like that Cole Turner type, 6'7" frame. Like, on paper, you like everything about it, but we shall see there. And I didn't see enough out of Vincent Brown this spring when I was up there. I certainly didn't see enough in the spring game to feel good there.
And the depleted depth at wide receivers, as some of these guys have left, raises my concern a little bit, because it does mean fewer options to just go 4 and 5 wide, and forget a tight end altogether. Or put a bigger wide receiver in that slot as kind of your big slot.
Well, and like when you had Justice Ross Simmons and Ollie, you were like, all right, well, now.
Right, exactly.
But now everything's changed. And Goffney's more of a slot guy who you're going to put on the inside. You are hearing good things about some of these young receivers, like Caleb Goody, another big body guy, I think 6'2", 6'3". So, like, they're going to have options, but it is something that I at least have a little bit of a concern going into the summer. Moving over to the defensive side, I don't feel panicked about any singular position group, but I do feel like the depth, they could just use some veteran pieces for basically all 3 levels. Like, you could use one more corner, you could use another interior defensive lineman, you could use another linebacker. I think you feel really good about who your projected starters are going to be there, but it feels like a situation where you're really dependent on a lot of 4th year, 5th year guys that are going to be in the lineup. And if they go down, then all of a sudden it's a lot of 1st and 2nd year players. You just don't have a ton to fill in the gaps there. Yeah. To me, that's, along with tight end, like, this is an even bigger concern, because with Tory and BFN back, the O-line, the running back, I feel pretty good that the offense is going to be at least capable. Yeah. Defensively, you would kind of like to see them make a jump, and that's tough because I don't see a world in which you get better without Mo Camara and Grady Kelly and some of these key pieces.
For sure.
Especially when it comes to the interior defensive line. I think they need to add some bodies and some size.
Yeah, and I think this is just part of being in, going into year 3. It's just, and having the kind of turnover you had from the previous staff, right? Like that being a shorter window.
And you're losing, like you've lost some pieces on top of that. Like you bring in a guy like TJ Crandall, who you think's going to pop this year as a sophomore. Instead, he goes off to West Virginia. You know, you lose Grady Kelly to Florida State.
Yep,
like
exactly.
They haven't been murdered by the portal like some of these other schools have.
Yeah.
But you've been chipped away enough now to where you feel a little worrisome about the depth.
Right.
Even with so many of these key guys coming back, like Jack Howell and Blackburn, and I think Cam Baratow's in line to have a big year, Chase Wilson. But
no, that's exactly right. So, I mean, that's what you got to really figure out. You got to build up some depth. And I do think, some coaches are going to lean in more defensive. Some are going to be a little more offensive. And I think right now, the roster is going to be a little top heavy. That's just unavoidable. And it's part of the success in retaining their top guys.
And it's the importance of winning. Like, you've got to get this winning season, and then it's going to be easier to retain guys and everything. But right now, you're just kind of in limbo, where it's like you have the potential of having this ascension. You also have the potential of kind of sliding back down the mountain again.
Right.
We'll see. It's a really interesting year, certainly a massive year for the program. The pressure to win is on, with 7 home games, multiple rivalry games at home, and just the fact that it's year 3 in the system. That's kind of traditionally the point where people start to be like, all right, like you've had some time, let's get it together. This is pretty obvious, but I was interested to see what would happen with the quarterback position in terms of, was it a true competition? I don't think it really was, but I don't think it should be either.
No.
This is Braden's team. He's saying all the right things. He's carrying himself like a leader. You can tell that he has a charisma to him that the team buys into. I'm very cautiously optimistic going into the year. He's got all the arm talent in the world. He's saying the things you want to hear in terms of, like, I don't need to be Superman. I know I need to cut down the turnovers.
Right.
If he goes out and does it, man, like I think he could be, an all-conference type quarterback in the conversation for Mountain West Offensive Player of the Year.
Absolutely, man. That's how it lines up, and the competition in the NIL era. I think it's easier to not have to be like everyone's competing for a job and just be like, look, man, this is the guy we've kind of gone all in on this season, and we're going to go as far as he's going to take us.
It's a really good point.
Because that's the truth of it.
Yeah.
It really is.
We've got an awesome event tonight at the Breckenridge Farmhouse, but we've got all kinds of events cooking up this spring. Join Susie Hunter and the Rocks crew for a Rockies-Phillies takeover on May 26th. That's a day game. The vibes for a day game, even as terrible as the Rockies are, there's nothing like sitting in the sunshine, having an ice-cold Coors Light at one of the most gorgeous ballparks in the country. And you get to do it with your Rocks family, with the DNVR community. Also, make sure you are following us on Insta for updates on the Nuggets and Avs. We'll have all kinds of stuff going on here at the DNVR bar throughout the playoffs. Follow us on social at DNVR_sports, or go to thednvr.com/events to check out our calendar.
Nicely done. And I want to tell you about the Circa Sportsbook Colorado app. Circa Sportsbook prides themselves on being an app for real bettors who aren't, they're not looking for any side nonsense. They're just giving you the best odds possible on the most common bets and allowing you to take that. Most books, you'll find lines in the -115, -120 splits. Circa tries to always give you in that -110. Their app is easy to use. You go on there, super simple, super clear cut. You can do parlays, whatever, man. You're gonna get the better odds at this book on your straight up bets, and that's why you want to download the Circa Sportsbook app and get in on that. They've got great customer care. They've been phenomenal to work with as a partner. So download the app at circasports.com. Circa Sports bets can only be made while physically located in the state of Colorado. Must be 21 or older. All rights reserved. Circa Sports Colorado encourages you to gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER or visit problemgamblingcolorado.org.
Nailed it. And if you're out in Vegas, make sure you use that code DNVR20 to stay at the Circa Resort and Casino. Save 20% on your stay. Circa Friends of the Pod, Friends of the Mountain West. Mountain West Media Day is going to be there for the second summer in a row. Looking forward to that.
Hell yeah.
We're, in just a second, Dre and I are going to do a little draft. We're going to try and create an all-time offense. So we're going to keep it in the 21st century for the most part. I did want to throw out some numbers and basically throw out some scenarios in terms of what Tory would need to do to make history. And I'm going to ask Dre if he buys it or sells it in terms of this coming to fruition. Over the last 2 seasons, Tory Horton has 9 100-yard games. He has like 5 or 6 other ones where he finished with high 90s, so very close to having like 15 there. I'm going to say he gets 8 this season alone. The CSU single-season record is 10, set by Rashard Higgins back in 2014.
Wow.
That'd be 2 out of every 3 games he would have 100 yards. Are you buying or selling?
I think I'm selling. I think he's too much of a like known commodity, too much of a focus of opposing defenses.
You got to factor the schedule as well. You're playing a couple Power 5 teams, 3 if you consider Oregon State still
and
one.
I think they'll lean into the running game and some of these other options in the receiving game as well. I just think that's really hard to do when you're already a known all-conference guy. Like Hollywood, he's doing that in his breakout sophomore season, right?
Yeah, and I mean, what Higgins did in 2014 is just, it was unreal.
Aside from it being unreal. And for him, much harder to replicate the next season.
Yeah, I mean, his numbers dipped significantly for a reason. You go from being oh man, this guy's quite good to, we're putting our entire defensive game plan into making sure he is not the one piece that beats us. All right, so you're selling that one. We're saying less than 8 100-yard games. He has 16 receiving touchdowns at CSU, 26 in his career, which is very impressive. He passed Dion Morton for the 10th most in CSU history this past season. Rashard Higgins owns the record at 31. Rashard Higgins also owns the single season record, 17 touchdowns in 2014. He basically set every single season record that year, correct. Touchdowns, catches, yards, all of that. Gallup and Williams are next. They each had a 14 touchdown season. He needs 16 touchdowns to surpass Rashard Higgins. He has 16 over the last 2 years. 3 guys have done it, or 3 guys have been in that mix. Rashard's the only one that's actually done it. 16, that's a lofty number.
I think it's a smidge too hard to
you would need there. It'd have to be a situation where I think in the non-con you go off, have a 5 touchdown game against Greeley and probably a couple 3 touchdown games.
I think I'd set that over under at 13.5.
That's a better one. Okay, so let's put it at that. 3, Preston Williams, Michael Gallup, Rashard Higgins, all guys that could be in the conversation for most talented receiver in CSU history. They have all had a 14 touchdown season. So we'll just put it at that. Yes or no, 14 touchdowns?
Oh, man. I'm going to say yes, but again, just like the yards, I'm worried about how much attention he gets.
Well, these are
everything.
These are insane numbers. These aren't
50-50 propositions.
No,
these are plus 400
we're throwing
to a
3/4 court heaves and trying to hit one. I'm going to say he hits it. I'm going to say he does have 14 touchdowns, but I'm with you, less than 8 100-yard games.
Yeah, and 16 is just too hard to get to.
It's just so high. Maybe if they got in a bowl game and the championship or something like that, where you get 2 extra games. Right. He has 167 catches as a Ram. That ranks 7th in CSU history. Again, we're only talking about his CSU production, not his Nevada production. If he matches his average of 83.5 receptions from the past 2 years, he would become CSU's all-time leader in receptions. It's currently Rashard Higgins at 231. Does he match that average of 80? Does he get 84 catches this season?
Yeah. No, I think he goes over that.
I think he does too. Michael Gallup has a single season record with 100 catches.
I think he could get that.
I think it's in play too. Especially, I mean, you just get a couple of double-digit games, and all of a sudden it's like he had 40 catches in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think defenses will really try to limit him and whatnot, but I do think he will get his touches. Well,
because they're gonna, even if they're limiting him over the top, they're still gonna get him the ball with some of those crossers, quick screens. They're going to get the ball in Tory's hands, one way or another. You have to, and if you're not, it's gonna be a failure of this team.
But 84 should be pretty easy to surpass for him too.
It feels right. It feels like a lock. Currently 7th also in CSU history with 2,267 receiving yards. If he matches his average of 1,133 a year, he'll have 3,400 in a Rams uniform, almost 5,000 in his career because he had close to 1,000 at Nevada.
Wow.
He needs 1,383 yards. That would be 250 yards more than the last 2 years to pass Rashard Higgins for most all time. Does he have a 1,400-yard season?
I mean, we're right there.
This is one of those that literally could be made or break by 2 or 3 receptions.
Totally. I mean,
can you break an 80-yard touchdown? That's the difference,
Well, and, the under is just the safer because a lot of things can happen for that to go wrong. And
it's not like
way fewer can allow.
If these don't hit, I'm not going to be coming back to you next December.
I mean,
remember when you said he was going to have the best season of all time and he didn't?
It's
Idiot.
Just realistic to say under.
I'm going to go slightly under as well. Just because I'm with you. I think they lean on the ground game.
Yeah.
And I think you're able to get 400 plus yards out of all of Ollie, Goffney, and then assumingly Jackson Warren at tight end. Last one here, and then we'll do this draft. We'll have a little bit of fun here. Olabisi Johnson set the single game record with 265 receiving yards back in the 2016 Idaho Potato Bowl, a night we'd mostly like to forget. Gallup had 263 against Jay Norvell in 2017. Horton's career high is 227 yards. Will he have a game that breaks the record of 265? That is a huge number.
I think the year to do that was year 1 with Clay Millen.
Or Utah Tech last year or something, where he came close. He had 225 against Utah Tech.
He came close. That's just tough to project.
Let me phrase it this way. Over, under 1.5 200-yard games for Tory this season?
Yeah. That requires more in-depth scheduling analysis. Tough. I'll go under.
A safe man.
Yeah.
A safe man indeed.
Yeah, I mean, it's Justin, it's tough to project this. It's tough. The final year, you're always going to disappoint. You're just set up for disappointment.
It's a good point. We are going to take a quick breath real quick, and then we're going to do this draft. So let's get into it.
Let's do it.
This is how it's going to work. We are each going to draft a quarterback. We are each going to draft at least one running back, at least 2 wide receivers, at least 1 tight end, and a flex. The flex can be a second running back. It can be a 3rd wide receiver, or it can be a 2nd tight end. It's up to you, just like fantasy football.
Okay. No quarterbacks in the flex.
No quarterbacks in the flex. I wanted it to be realistic. You are the guest on this show. I will let you pick. Would you rather be first, or would you rather have the turn?
I want the first pick. Give me Bradley Van Pelt.
With the first overall pick going chalk. I like it.
BVP. Lock it in at quarterback right there.
Where I struggle with this exercise is, do I go who I think would be the best, this would be the team that would be the best, or do I go, these are the all-time great Rams in terms of just trying to get brownie points? That's Bradley Van Pelt is the most popular quarterback in CSU history, without a doubt.
Legendary.
He, in terms of actual throwing the football, he's probably not top 5.
Well, sure, but he's a dual threat quarterback.
I know. I'm just saying, but these are the things you have to consider.
Yeah.
Like, you could argue like a Nick Stevens is a better pure pocket passer.
No,
he's not a winner.
It's not arguable.
Yeah.
He is. But Justin, so what?
I know. I'm going
to win more games with BVP as a runner.
Deferring strategies.
Well,
Easy
yeah, of
now.
course. No, I know.
All right, fine. I got the next 2 picks. I'm going Trey McBride and Rashard Higgins.
Those are really good picks. Well done, sir.
Trey McBride is a tight end. Rashard Higgins is a wide receiver. Tiff.
Let's go with my next 2 picks. I think I'll go Cecil Sapp at running back. And I might just go Capri.
In the flex.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And give me Capri Bibbs in the flex, please.
KAPRIBIBBS. Capri Bibbs. Taking him in the flex. 2013 season up there with one of the craziest seasons by any player in college history.
Yeah.
All right, so right now, Dre has BVP at quarterback, Cecil Sapp at running back, and Capri in his flex.
Yeah.
I have Rashard Higgins
run it
and
down your
Trey
throat.
McBride. Which one? Bibbs, BIBBS. I should have made a bank with the players' names for you, and we'll be better next time. Yeah. All right, I'm going to take Tory Horton.
Really?
And in my flex, I'm going to go Michael Gallup.
It's a good pick. It's a very good pick. Can't argue against that one.
You got 2 receiver spots and a tight end to fill.
Yes. Give me David Anderson at wide receiver. And yeah, I think I'll go Warren Jackson
I like that pick.
over Preston Williams.
Look, man, Preston has all the talent in the world, but I've talked about this so many times. Like, when I created my all-time CSU football roster, I didn't put him on. Like, he's not.
Definitely not.
You know, like, I would put BC Johnson over him just because BC was a great Ram. 4 years, like.
For sure. I mean, he's not even the 5th wide receiver taken here. That's the first time he's even in consideration. And yeah, I think Warren's better. I'd agree BC's better.
And just good dudes. Easy to root for.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good season, but kind of fell flat on its face. Didn't go on to do anything. So,
man, taking both Capri and Cecil's put me in a tough spot at running back. We're keeping this 21st century just for everybody listening. So, like, you know, I'm not going to go back to the 80s, although
Right.
there are a couple of guys that you could put in the conversation here, the Steve Bartolos of the world, the Leon Washingtons of the, or what was his name? Rams running back in the 70s, trying to blank on his name. I'm sorry about that. I am going to go with my quarterback here.
yeah.
I'm going to go Garrett Grayson.
Yeah. Great pick.
And at running back, I think the better player is Dalen Dawkins, but I'm going to go with my heart. I'm going to go back to the early 2000s. And we're going to go Kyle Bell because when he was healthy, he was a menace. I want a little bit of physicality. I want a little bit of Colorado representation on my team.
That's a good one.
Tight end's tough. You got a couple of good options, though, still deceptively.
Mm-hmm.
Kevon Cartwright, who's actually the all-time leading receiver in touchdown receptions by a
Yep.
CSU tight end.
Holker,
You got
of
Crockett
course.
Gilmore,
Crockett.
Dallin Holker, and the Holy Holker. I mean,
Yeah. Is there
Joel
one more for
Dreesen?
Joel Dreesen, but
Dreesen's
he does
probably
count
the pick.
as
21st century, yeah. 02.
No, and then I'd have BVP, Cecil Sapp, and Dreesen.
If we're going just purely nostalgic vibes, your team is really high. Like,
Oh, for
just
sure.
winners, badass dudes that would run through your face, talk shit to you afterwards. I'm lacking a little
Yeah.
bit of that. I've got Trey, who I know will go fight the entire team if I need, but you got a whole squad of dudes to, like, probably don't want to catch them in the hallway after the game, running your mouth.
For sure. And yet I wonder if Crockett's a better pick than Childress.
Crockett, before he got hurt, was really good. Like, he's just one of those dudes that he's so big that it was inevitable. But I mean, complete tight end, can make plays for you in the open field.
Yeah, no, I like Crockett. Give me Crockett Gilmore, please, at tight end for our final spot right there.
Crockett. I like it. This is a fun exercise.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll do it
great.
with the defense sometime. We'll
That
put
would
this
be lots of
graphic
fun, yes.
out, and we'll let the people decide.
Yeah.
Here's my team. I've got Garrett Grayson at quarterback, Kyle Bell at running back, Tory Horton and Rashard Higgins at receiver. Trey McBride is my tight end with Michael Gallup in the flex. My man Dre's got BVP, the man, the myth, the legend, Cecil the Diesel in the backfield, DA David Anderson at wide receiver. At this point, the most underrated CSU player of all time, I would argue, is David Anderson. He was sick. And you youngins out there, go watch some David Anderson route running and learn a thing or two.
Yep.
Warren Jackson at receiver, Crockett Gilmore at tight end, one of the nicest people I've ever met. And at the flex, Capri Bibbs, that 2014 season.
Yeah, good representation for some awesome teams, right? Like you get, BVP, Cecil, and Dreesen all played together. And then, of course, Grayson, Crockett,
It's
and
like the
Capri
two eras,
all played
like
together.
You get McElwain represented well, the wide receiver you represented well, even though that didn't lead to the team success.
And then the wide receivers are all kind of on an island.
Yeah, and
but they all
era.
have their great, memorable eras on their own.
This is a blast. Shout out to everybody in the comment section. I appreciate you rocking with us. I'll be going live tomorrow as well. We got a super chat here. I think this was for the draft pod, but you want to know what, Eric? We're the draft pod hosts, and you gave us a super chat, so we're going to acknowledge it.
Damn straight.
He says, please, please, please trade back and draft best player available or Penix or Knicks.
Right. So not necessarily just best player available. Even in his advice, he torn. But I feel you, Eric. We're going to see. We'll all be holding on tight. A trade down for where this franchise is at this moment does feel really right. But go check out that draft pod and everything.
Especially because, again, we're just trying to make this Rams related. If the Broncos were to trade back, add some capital, add, let's say, a second-round pick now or an early third-round pick, now all of a sudden the possibility of a guy like Mo Camara ending up in Denver becomes much more realistic.
Right.
We'll see. Shout out to Mo, shout out to Chiggy, shout out to Dallin. We'll all be rooting for you in Ram Nation. Make sure you're following us all weekend. We'll be having all kinds of draft coverage. Whatever happens with the CSU guys, I'll obviously be breaking that down, talking about fits, projection, all of that fun stuff.
Beautiful.
Should get some hoops recruiting news in these next couple of days. They've had a ton of visits of late. I expect, once the first domino falls, usually things start picking up steam. Much love to Tiff behind the sticks. Much love to Dre. Much love to all of you.
And to you.
Always proud to be. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.